Testing 1 2 3. Testing 1 2 3. This is Radio Free Mormon on the air, broadcasting behind enemy lines. Tonight's episode, Operation Underground Railroad update, and that's Operation Underground Railroad. Tim Ballard's organization. There was this past summer a feature-length film called Sound of Freedom that was made out of Tim Ballard's exploits with his organization, OUR, Operation Underground Railroad, and their efforts to save children from sex trafficking. There has been a lot of news coverage about Tim Ballard and this organization and its relationship to the church. And Vice News is an organization that has been doing a number of stories on Tim Ballard. I've read them over the last few months. I have not said anything in my capacity as Radio Free Mormon about the subject, but there is something that came out today. This is late breaking news from Vice News, dated today's date, September 15th, 2023, that I could not believe when I read this article. There are things that have been discovered now by the journalists at Vice News, and their main source of information for this latest story, today's date, is police reports and investigative reports of an investigation that was conducted into Tim Ballard and Operation Underground Railroad. I think it was a couple of years ago now. It didn't lead anywhere as far as criminal charges go, but there was an investigation that was conducted, and Vice News obtained the records of this investigation through Freedom of Information Act request. They've got a lot of documents, and they wrote a story about what they have found in these documents. And this is really, really remarkable. I did go see the movie this past summer. I went and saw Sound of Freedom. I didn't think it was that good a movie. I thought it was okay, but it really didn't compel me as far just as a story goes. However, it has been the surprise hit of the summer, and it's been raking in a lot of money and getting a lot of notoriety for Tim Ballard, who I understand testified before Congress just yesterday. I think it was yesterday on September 14th. Anyway, let's get to this story because you are not going to believe what's in this story. At least I know that I sure am having trouble believing what's in this story. Here we go. The title of this article at Vice News is Mormon Church Denounces Tim Ballard's Morally Unacceptable Activities. That is the title. And the byline is a church spokesperson tells Vice News that Tim Ballard betrayed his friendship with a powerful leader. By the way, it's going to take him a while to work into who this powerful church leader is. It's Elder Ballard. All right. They share the same last name. Apparently, there's no relation as far as family relation goes, but there may be certainly a friendship, which may or may not be over by this point. But a church spokesman tells Vice News that Ballard betrayed his friendship with a powerful leader, Elder Ballard, who, quote, never authorized his name or the name of the church to be used for Tim's personal or financial interest. So that's the main takeaway that they get from this story. It's actually not the main takeaway that I get from this story. All right, here we get to the article. Documents obtained by Vice News show anti-trafficking activist Tim Ballard claimed that a revered and powerful figure in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, yep, Elder Ballard, played a secret central role in Operation Underground Railroad, the organization Ballard founded. Now that's Tim Ballard founded. Insiders who spoke to federal and local investigators as part of a since-closed criminal inquiry described Tim Ballard, claiming that Operation Underground Railroad and his personal business ventures were backed by the senior member of the church's second highest leadership body, obviously the Quorum of the 12 Apostles, and part of a larger mission to use the anti-trafficking cause. Are you sitting down? As part of a larger mission to use the anti-trafficking cause to bring Americans to the Mormon faith. Yes, there's an ulterior motive apparently behind all of this rescuing of children from sex traffickers, and that is to make everybody a Mormon, at least in the United States of America. Or in his words, lead them to the covenant. So this is what these reports are alleging or showing about Tim Ballard, that is part of his overall mission. That is his overall mission, to bring people to the covenant, or in other words, Mormonism. Get everybody on the covenant path. That's where we all should be, really, isn't it? It goes on to say, notes from an interview between criminal investigators and a former Operation Underground Railroad higher up state Tim is fully convinced that he is supposed to be the Mormon Messiah and lead people back to the church. That's quote unquote. But now, a spokesman or a spokesperson for the church tells Vice News that while the apostle in question, President M. Russell Ballard, was once close to Tim Ballard, to whom he is not related, despite their sharing a last name, despite the fact that they were once close, he was once close to Tim Ballard, the Operation Underground Railroad founder, quote, betrayed their friendship through the unauthorized use of President Ballard's name for Tim Ballard's personal advantage and activity regarded as morally unacceptable. Well, it's pretty clear that Tim Ballard's been telling everybody who will listen about his close relationship with Elder Ballard. The question is whether this is true or whether it's just made up, because Elder Ballard is not going to cop to it. He does say he did used to have a friendship with him, but that has apparently since soured. So there may be some truth to it. I'm not sure. Elder Ballard's relationship with Tim Ballard is, the church spokesperson told Vice News, it's in the past. He is dead to me. It's in the past. They did not specify what activity was regarded as morally unacceptable. Tim Ballard did not respond to a detailed request for comment. Operation Underground Railroad provided a statement, though, which is reproduced in full below. By the way, when they released a statement saying that the church's spokesperson says that Tim Ballard's personal advantage and activity, he using the name of Elder Ballard and of the church, that was morally unacceptable. I think that what they're talking about is really just using the name of Elder Ballard in the name of the church. Right. That's what they're saying is morally unacceptable. I'm not sure it really goes much further than that, although it is not defined anywhere in this statement. Okay. The unusually public denunciation of Tim Ballard is particularly newsworthy at this moment. Tim Ballard left Operation Underground Railroad earlier this year, following an internal investigation into employee complaints about his conduct at virtually the same time that Sound of Freedom, the movie, a fictionalized version of his purported child rescuing exploits, became a surprise box office hit. He has since begun promoting a new anti-trafficking organization, the Spear Fund, SPEAR. I don't know exactly what that stands for, but I think it stands for Let's Make Money for Tim Ballard in a different organization doing the same thing, since now he's stepped down from Operation Underground Railroad. But Tim Ballard is also said by many Utah insiders to be weighing a run for the Senate. Speculation that was given more weight by a recent statement from Sean Reyes, the Utah Attorney General. So Sean Reyes, Utah Attorney General, who's also a longtime friend and supporter of Tim Ballard. Reyes wrote that he would not be running for Senate, allowing an opportunity for a dear friend of mine, who is a great conservative, patriot, and warrior, to run and serve as the next senator from Utah. So it looks like Sean Reyes is abandoning his run for the Senate in order to make way for Tim Ballard, whom he is obviously going to be supporting. I mean, I can't imagine it's anybody other than Tim Ballard, given their relationship and this description of him as a great conservative, patriot, and warrior. Oh, yeah, it's Tim Ballard. The documents obtained by Vice News through a public records request are from a now closed, excuse me, I want to make sure I read the rest of that paragraph above it. Reyes said that person, i.e. probably almost certainly Tim Ballard, Reyes said that person would announce their run in the coming days. And we'll see if it really is October 10th, as some have speculated. The documents obtained by Vice News through a public records request are from a now closed criminal investigation into Operation Underground Railroad conducted jointly by a Utah county attorney and the FBI. So there's a prosecutor, local, and the FBI. Several people, according to the documents, described exceptionally close ties between the two Ballards. Elder Ballard, who is in his 90s, is the acting president of the Quorum of the 12 Apostles, an extremely senior position within the church and is viewed by faithful Mormons as a profound spiritual and moral authority. Sad but true. People familiar with Operation Underground Railroad's operations have previously told Vice News that Tim Ballard has sometimes claimed that Elder Ballard personally urged him to quit his previous job at Homeland Security Investigations to found Operation Underground Railroad. The ties between Tim Ballard and Elder Ballard described in the documents are numerous and occasionally bizarre. Okay, hold on to your seats for this one, because bizarre is a nice word for it. Involving claimed business arrangements, blessings, and even a psychic who claimed to be able to communicate with the prophet Nephi, who, according to the Book of Mormon, has been dead for thousands of years. Allegations from a former Operation Underground Railroad higher up, as well as text messages contained in the documents obtained by Vice News, suggest that Tim Ballard and an associate represented Elder Ballard as a partner in a for-profit business called Slave Stealers, which was pitched as a way to control Operation Underground Railroad and other nonprofits. It was apparently viewed as part of a scheme that would allow Tim Ballard to monetize the notoriety he gained through his often exaggerated exploits. Tim Ballard also claimed, according to the documents, that Elder Ballard maintained close contact with him during at least one disastrous overseas mission, which was based on information. Are you ready? Which was based on information obtained by the psychic medium and aimed at rescuing a missing child. Tim Ballard said the Mormon Elder Ballard, blessed him and his wife, Catherine, that's Tim Ballard's wife, Catherine, before the mission, and received real-time updates from on the ground. Once again, these claims are being made in documents that were part of a criminal investigation, and they're people talking about things that they heard Tim Ballard tell them about Elder Ballard. So I'm not exactly sure if this is true or if this is just puffery on the part of Tim Ballard. Let's go on with the article. In response to a detailed request for comment on these matters, a spokesperson for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints sent a statement which reads in full. Are you ready for the statement? President Ballard and Tim Ballard, no relation, established a friendship a number of years ago. So they do have a friendship, or at least did. That friendship was built on a shared interest in looking after God's children wherever they are and without regard to their circumstance. It sounds like it's about the rescuing the children from sex trafficking to me. However, that relationship is in the past. For many months, President Ballard has had no contact with the founder of Operation Underground Railroad, i.e. Tim Ballard. The nature of that relationship was always in support of vulnerable children being abused, trafficked, and otherwise neglected. This, I'm not sure the sentence says exactly what it's supposed to say. I think it's supposed to say the opposite. Let me read the sentence again. This is, again, from the church statement. The nature of the relationship between President Ballard and Tim Ballard, the nature of that relationship was always in support of vulnerable children being abused, trafficked, and otherwise neglected. I think there should be a not in there somewhere. Okay, obviously it's not in support of them being trafficked and abused and otherwise neglected, in spite of the fact that that's how the statement reads here on the Vice News website. A little bit more proofreading might have been in order, either by Vice News or the church. Not sure who made that mistake. Once it became clear going on, Tim Ballard had betrayed their friendship. Wow, that's strong language. Once it became clear Tim Ballard had betrayed their friendship through the unauthorized use of President Ballard's name for Tim Ballard's personal advantage and activity regarded as morally unacceptable. Yeah, that's another weird line. But it goes on, President Ballard withdrew his association. So morally unacceptable. It's definitely about using Elder Ballard's name in promoting things, which a lot of people heard him use and which did come to light, probably through the criminal investigation some time ago. President Ballard withdrew his association. President Ballard never authorized his name or the name of the church to be used for Tim's personal or financial interests. And it's possible that President Ballard didn't want him talking about President Ballard's involvement in this organization or his support of it or the blessings or any of the other things that happened. I mean, not to mention the use of a psychic. Really? Tim Ballard's out there using a psychic to locate children in foreign countries to go rescue them? Does Elder Ballard know about this? This is the part that totally blows my mind. Having been a member of the church for 45 years now, it doesn't blow my mind that President Ballard would be involved in supporting this operation, believing that it's actually doing what it is represented as doing. Of course, it's going to pull on his heartstrings. He's going to want to support it. And frankly, it doesn't surprise me either that Tim Ballard's view of this would be, we're going to use this Operation Underground Railroad, rescuing these sex trafficked children, as a way to get people's interest in the organization with the underlying goal of bringing them all to be members of the LDS Church. That's a little bit more beyond, but even that doesn't surprise me. The thing that surprises me is the fact that they're using a psychic in order to locate people. This is like the stories about people doing their genealogy using a Ouija board that I used to hear about. I cannot imagine any leader of the church, or frankly, any member of the church, using a psychic and thinking that that was okay, at least with the doctrines of Mormonism. That's what shocks me. Okay, the statement concludes from the church. In addition, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints never endorsed, supported, or represented Operation Underground Railroad, Tim Ballard, or any projects associated with him. Boy, are they trying to distance themselves. Probably a good idea. President Ballard loves children all over the world. It has been his mission in life's work to look after them, care for them, and point them to their Savior. Okay. So they're just trying to say that President Ballard's helping out with rescuing children from being sex trafficked, falls in line with his love of children all over the world. All right, let's go on. In an email to Sean Reyes, the Utah Attorney General, Troy Rawlings, a prosecutor in Davis County, Utah, whose office carried out the now closed investigation into Operation Underground Railroad, wrote that he had somewhere around 10,000 pages of psychic readings. He's obtained 10,000 pages of psychic readings. Those were conducted by Janet Russon, Russon, Janet Russon, a psychic medium who, quote, talks to dead Mormon leaders, particularly a Mormon prophet from 600 BC named Nephi, to get intel. That's quote unquote. And that's what Troy Rawlings, the prosecutor in Davis County, whose office carried out the investigation, wrote. Russon, the psychic, declined to comment on her work with Operation Underground Railroad when reached by Vice News. Rawlings did not respond to a request for comment either, but they have the documents. Interesting that the psychic is saying, when they're asked, we want to talk to you about your working for the church, and the psychic's response is no comment. Rawlings, the prosecutor, whose office did the investigation or helped along with the FBI, Rawlings made it clear that he thought donors to Operation Underground Railroad would be dismayed by the idea that its paramilitary missions were guided by a psychic and a deceased Mormon prophet. Yeah, I think they would. That's why I had to rush and do this special podcast this afternoon on Friday, September 15th, 2023, because I cannot believe this. But apparently, it's true. Okay. Rawlings made it clear, about psychic and a deceased Mormon prophet. Yeah, of course they'd be dismayed. He says donors are not made aware that Nephi, via the psychic, is the key piece of Operation Underground Railroad operational intelligence. He added, so a psychic is the key piece of their intelligence. This reminds me of the 1980s when it came out that Nancy Reagan was using horoscopes and the zodiac in order to plan her husband, Ronald Reagan, the president's trips. And that created a bit of a stir. This may create more of one, I'm not sure. Criminal investigators were interested in the nexus between Russon, the psychic, Tim Ballard, and the church. One document Vice News obtained is a memo describing an interview between an FBI special agent and a Davis County investigator, and a former Operation Underground Railroad development director, whom we are not naming at her request. This person said she had not heard that Janet, the psychic, was ever vetted or vouched for by the LDS Church. Well, I hope not. That's what the memo reads, and it goes on. But stated that Tim Ballard, blurred lines and would frequently say, I told Elder Ballard all about it. All right. So this person, who's the former Operation Underground Railroad development director, said she had not heard that the psychic, Janet Russin, was ever vetted or vouched for by the LDS Church. But she does state that Tim blurred lines and would frequently say, I told Elder Ballard all around it. So according to this person who is a development director with Operation Underground Railroad, she heard Tim Ballard say that I told Elder Ballard all about our use of the psychic medium. Interesting. Okay. The article goes on. Further, according to the former development director's statements to investigators, this is the same unnamed lady, Tim Ballard claimed that Elder Ballard was involved in Liberty 89. What is Liberty 89, you ask? Well, apparently it's a business in Utah whose registered agent is Tim Ballard, according to public filings. At a meeting with Tim Ballard and a group of his associates who claimed to have visions and special intelligence of the second coming, by the way, that's quote unquote, visions and special intelligence of the second coming, the former development director said she was made aware that the venture had to do with God calling Tim Ballard to restore America to the covenant. So that's what Liberty 89 is all about. The purpose of that business, that venture, has to do with God calling Tim Ballard to restore America to the covenant. I have no idea if this is something that Tim Ballard just took upon himself, which is certainly likely, or whether it was a calling that was given to him by somebody high up in the church who might share the last name with him. I don't know. But it's getting very, very interesting. She also said Tim was very verbal about Elder Russell Ballard's involvement. Tim would say that M. Russell Ballard is a part of Liberty 89. Okay. That wasn't the only time that Tim Ballard leaned on his friendship with Elder Ballard to suggest the Mormon leader, Elder Ballard, had given his support to a project. Before the disastrous mission to locate Gardy Marty, this is the name of a missing boy, okay? Gardy Marty, a missing boy whose story Tim Ballard and Underground Railroad have over the years made central to the narrative of their fight against trafficking. So this is a rescue of a young boy whose story apparently has been used a lot by Tim Ballard. So before the disastrous mission to locate this boy, using intelligence gleaned from Russin, the psychic medium, Tim Ballard reported to a group of associates that Elder Ballard had blessed the operation. Okay. Well, it doesn't, if indeed it was a disastrous attempt and the mission blew up using intelligence from a psychic medium, any blessing that Elder Ballard gave to it didn't appear to have done the trick. It goes on. Through the whole process and all these miracles, I have reported back to Elder Ballard at least every month, sometimes more. These are the claims that Tim Ballard was allegedly making to people who were in the organization, high up in the organization. He said, according to an investigator's transcript of a video recording of the meeting. Okay, so there was a video recording of a meeting where Tim Ballard is speaking. It was transcribed. So apparently there's pretty good evidence that Tim Ballard really did say at this meeting, quote, through the whole process of this mission and all these miracles, I have reported back to Elder Ballard at least every month, sometimes more. And on the way to the airport last night, it goes on. And on the way to the airport last night, I stopped by his house, and Catherine and I, Catherine is Tim Ballard's wife, and Catherine and I spent about an hour with him, and he gave me a very powerful blessing. End of quote from Tim Ballard. So yes, there does appear to be substantial evidence that he has been using Elder Ballard's name, whether with or without Elder Ballard's permission. The article goes on. While the mission was going on, a witness told investigators Tim Ballard placed at least one phone call to Elder Ballard to plan the press release of rescuing Gardy. Okay. So apparently, one of the witnesses is saying, I saw Tim Ballard make a phone call to Elder Ballard during the mission to plan the press release. Other former Underground Railroad insiders had also gotten an earful from Tim Ballard about his ties to the Mormon power structure. According to one document in October 2020, so 3 years ago, an FBI special agent named Luke, no last name provided, FBI special agent, and Brian Purdy, an investigator for the Davis County Attorney's Office, interviewed Dave Lopez, a former Navy SEAL who previously led the ops team at Underground Railroad. So this is Dave Lopez, former Navy SEAL, led the ops team at Underground Railroad. And now they're going to be quoting from this individual, Dave Lopez, okay? Tim said, this is Lopez. Tim said multiple times, it's his job to use the sizzle of the rescue to lead people back to the Mormon covenant. He goes on. Dave stated that according to Tim, that's what this is all about. That's why he's doing all the movies and all the storytelling. He believes the Mormon Church is actually doing that with him, that Elder M. Russell Ballard of the Mormon Church is working with him on that secret agenda. He believes that it's his job to be this famous kind of celebrity that gets everyone's attention, but then in turn leads everyone to Mormonism. Lopez, once again, the former Navy SEAL who led the ops team, Lopez told investigators that Tim Ballard had developed a messianic view of himself. Quote, Dave said he thinks Tim is fully convinced that he is supposed to be the Mormon Messiah and lead people back to the church, the report reads. Remember, Dave is Dave Lopez. So he had personal involvement with Tim Ballard on the missions. Dave Lopez's final break with Underground Railroad, he told the investigators, came when an associate of Tim Ballard's tried to persuade him to invest in slave stealers. Now, slave stealers was this company, according to this article, it was going to be like the big company that was going to hold other companies within it. That's my understanding. One of the companies that would hold within it is Underground Railroad. So an associate of Tim Ballard's comes to Dave Lopez and tries to get him to invest in slave stealers, which would, according to a diagram drawn by Tim Ballard, control his various nonprofits, which would then promote his personal brand. Take sizzle of the rescue, lead them to the covenant, reads a note on the diagram, an apparent reference to a plan to use Underground Railroad's highly publicized child rescue missions as a way to lead Americans to the Mormon faith. Text messages, by the way, there is a photograph here of this dry board diagram that they're referring to and that they got as part of their FOIA requests. So go to vice.com, read the article there, and see the pictures as well. Text messages Dave Lopez provided to investigators show an associate of Tim Ballard's elaborating on the convoluted scheme. The texts stated that partners, including Elder Ballard, would control a for-profit entity that would have main control of Underground Railroad and proposing to bring together, if necessary, Elder Ballard and a business partner of Dave Lopez's with whom he was planning an island development. All right. Slave stealers did not in the end amount to much, nor seemingly did the plan to have it take control of Underground Railroad. The relationship between the two Ballards, Tim and Elder, however, did not end there, according to the documents. In August 2021, so now that's just about 2 years ago, Purdy, the Davis County investigator, and the FBI special agent, referred to in documents only as Luke, interviewed the woman who worked as Underground Railroad's director of development. I think this is the same woman we've heard from before. In that interview, the woman in question said in the 2015-2020 timeframe, so during those 5 years, she repeatedly met Mormon leaders in Tim Ballard's company. This is significant Because now apparently we have something more than just Tim Ballard saying that me and Elder Ballard are like this, and I meet with him and I talk to them all the time, and we're best buds, and he supports me and blesses me and all this stuff. Here's a witness who claims to have seen Tim Ballard in the company of Mormon leaders herself repeatedly. She said she met Elder Ballard, with whom Tim Ballard claimed to privately meet monthly. And she met Elder Ballard in the company of Tim Ballard and Elder Ronald Rasband. Well, what do you know? Who within the church had authority over Haiti, an area in which Underground Railroad has operated extensively. So it's not just Elder Ballard, it's also Elder Rasband. She said, and there's a pronoun missing. The sentence reads here, she said had another meeting with both Ballards and one with Rasband. I think it's got to be she. She said she had another meeting with both Ballards and one with Rasband. Yeah, she makes sense there. Tim Ballard and other Underground Railroad higher-ups, as well as several meetings with Elder Ballard in the VIP area of Underground Railroad events. So on more than one occasion, she has seen Tim Ballard, she claims, in the company of Elder Ballard, as well as Elder Rasband. Oh, by the way, apparently a church spokesperson indicated that Elder Rasband has no recollection of ever meeting with Tim Ballard or his staff. Such an interesting thing. I mean, you'd think he'd remember if he had. And if he remembered that he had not, you would just say, no, I never met the guy. But no, that's not what we get from the church spokesperson. Instead, we get the old song about how I have no recollection of meeting with him, which means you're basically in the clear unless they find evidence that you did. And then if the evidence is compelling, then, well, I guess now I do remember, right? Yeah, old trick. At a later point, the woman said that she was, in her official work capacity, brought to a meeting with Tim Ballard's associates, where he told her that because she had shared some spiritual things, he could tell her about secret things that I'm involved in. This was the meeting at which Tim Ballard claimed Elder Ballard was involved in Liberty 89. Per the report, the woman added that according to Tim Ballard, restoring America to the covenant was a big mission of his, and that is Tim Ballard's mission. And he was called of God to do this. She added that he was, in Purdy's retelling, very verbal about Elder Russell Ballard's involvement and behind it, but added that she didn't know if she believed it. Well, she'd certainly seen him in Elder Ballard's company more than once. Okay, so that's something. For now, Tim Ballard's professional and political futures aren't certain, but he has made ambitious efforts to move himself closer to a new power structure. On Wednesday, which was 2 days ago, so that would have been September 13th. On Wednesday, he testified before the House Foreign Affairs Committee, where he made a highly politicized statement about the Biden administration's role in aiding human trafficking, one which proved immediately popular with right-wing news sites. Here's his quote when he's testifying before Congress last Wednesday. Tragically, as a result of this administration's current policies, the Department of Homeland Security and the Department of Health and Human Services have unwittingly become a child trafficking delivery service, Ballard said in part. Yeah, I'd say that's pretty controversial. But this individual, Tim Ballard, not only is being portrayed by, is it Caviezel, Jim Caviezel? I think it is. In the movie, very, very famous and talented actor, and having a huge runaway hit at the box office at the same time as he's having to step down from leadership at Underground Railroad. But now he's testifying before Congress. So he certainly is seen as an authority on the subject. The article goes on. It's difficult to imagine that Tim Ballard could successfully run for elected office after being effectively denounced by the power structure of the most powerful religion in his home state. But he has proven himself, if nothing else, to be remarkably persistent, willing to reinvent himself, to spin new stories, to seek new allies, to boldly go where to spin new stories, to seek new allies as many times as necessary. It did sound a little bit like Star Trek there for a second, didn't it? In response to requests for comment about this story, as well as another one, an Underground Railroad spokesperson sent one statement which read as follows. So, this is the official statement from Underground Railroad. These allegations have been raised previously, written about by Vice, and thoroughly investigated by the Davis County District Attorney. That investigation concluded without the filing of any charges. Following Tim Ballard's departure from Underground Railroad 3 months ago, we have been working tirelessly to improve the efficiency and effectiveness of our domestic and international operations. At Underground Railroad, we are proud to support law enforcement in liberating any person in the grips of human trafficking or exploitation, and we strive to ensure ongoing aftercare for all those affected. Our resources have contributed to the arrest of over 7,400 suspected predators and have impacted the lives of over 7,800 individuals. Currently, we are carrying out an average of 5 missions per week worldwide. I wonder how they calculate that or define those missions. We are committed to this important work until everyone in need is safe. Okay, and that's the end of the article. So very, very, very interesting. There is apparently at least an alleged connection between Elder Ballard, the operating president. What do we call him? He's not really the president of the Quorum of the 12. He's the functional guy. Actually, it's Elder Oaks. Anyway, I can't remember at this point, but we all know who Elder Ballard is. I mean, I've kind of grown old with him. And I remember meeting him once back in the 1980s, shortly after he was called at the Stake Center down there in Austin. Said hi to him and shook his hand. Seemed like a very nice guy. I'm sure he would be very touched by Tim Ballard's efforts to rescue children and to help them out and to do what he could to help with that in whatever way he thought was appropriate. On the other hand, it does seem that they were friends, and Elder Ballard has admitted to that much. But the use of his name by Tim Ballard was too much for Elder Ballard to continue with. And so it appears that he cut off this relationship. But anyway, so can you imagine? Can you imagine a psychic? Tim Ballard is using a psychic to find these kids. And apparently, at least one of these operations was disastrous in what happened. This is amazing to me because it is so strange that I wanted to report on it to you today. So there it is. This is my special report to you, courtesy of Radio Free Mormon and Vice News. Until next time, this is Radio Free Mormon, signing off the air.